Hello, and welcome back for another episode of Builder's Journey on the Club Pod. I'm Nicole, your host and lead educator at Seed Club. Today, we hear from Heat, a community creating a new marketplace for dancers and movement online using motion capture and metaversal interoperability. I spoke with co founder Brady on his initial spark for Heat, the process of selecting core partners, his go to community strategy and learnings, and how ultimately he balances between art making, building, and marketing his project. Enjoy! Hello, Brady. How are
Hello,
you?
Nicole. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to catch up. It's been far too long
Too
since we've
long.
seen each other. Before we get too deep into it, I would love for those who haven't been lucky enough to meet you yet, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Heat?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Brady. I am in Los Angeles. I am a artist, musician, visual artist, a motion capture specialist, and metaverse builder, if you will. Lots of things. And now co-founder of Heat. So I've been a touring musician most of my life, and in the past like 3 or 4 years, I've been diving deeper into 3D visual art and motion capture, animation, and kind of creating virtual worlds and immersive content to connect with my fans and my through music and performance, and using the tools around me. And then recently diving into crypto in 2020. Well, I guess that isn't recent in crypto time, but it's like somebody the other day called me an OG, and I was like, I guess. But they were like, hey, they're like, you put out NFTs before 2021? I was like, yes, you're an OG. So yeah, so I guess I've been dabbling in this space for quite a while, and really just loving it and building in it and getting to know the communities and really seeing the power behind a lot of these tools, and in this space, and through that trying to help creators even further by creating Heat, which is something that we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, it's a little bit about me now.
And so, yeah, obviously you created Heat. We're going to get into what that is. I guess as you share about what the Heat project is and, what your call to adventure is, why you exist, I would love for you to also talk about how you formed the sort of little Genesis team around it, like where you and how you met up with Prof and Stav.
Yeah.
Because I think that your team, one of the things I love to see in teams is this sort of like high overlap of mission and purpose, but then a sort of difference in variety in skills and superpowers. And I really see that in your team. So I would love to hear both like how Heat came to be and, of course, what it is, but then also a little bit about your founding team.
Yeah. So there's Stav and Prof, and I actually know Stav from him working on a music video with me for another band that I have other than Panther Modern, which is the artist name I go by. The So we worked together on that and have been friends ever since, kind of like talking about art projects and just been in this. But we stepped into he after he also started collecting some of my art, and we started talking about what I was doing, and that's actually how I also met Prof. But before I get into that, Stav is a he is just all around operational strategist genius. He's so good at just getting everybody together, figuring it out, and making a plan of action for us. But he's also been working in a lot of production and building out companies before, and then working in a lot of video and film post production. So he has a lot of experience getting a lot of these bigger projects and managing projects done and pushing those forward. And then we have Prof, who is just an all around, I feel like, crypto expert, in my opinion. He's also another genius who I met through digitally collecting my art. When I started putting out NFTs, after a few months, he began to like come in, and we started talking and seeing that we were in a lot of similar projects. And I saw him write 4 paragraphs and raise $2.3 million in like 2 days, and I was like, wow. You're an amazing person. Let's work together. And so then we've been working together ever since in building out Heat. And he really loved the idea that I had, and I think he really felt that I had the potential to bring this project forward, which is, very encouraging and validating to see somebody who can do what he can do, and see value in what I'm doing as well. So we connected over that and been building there. But yeah, so yeah, that's kind of like the founding team there.
So tell me, yeah, so we're in, when are we? It's February 2022 right now. And I'm curious of like when that spark first happened. I would love for you to tell me, what that idea first was, and then what the sort of like building has been since then. So you came into the accelerator in September
Right.
2021. But what was the idea when you first started, and what was the timeline of coming together and starting to build?
Absolutely. So it's funny. Stav just sent me a picture of us going to check out a warehouse about a year ago for Heat, and because that was like our initial idea. So we've been working on this idea for, yeah, a little over a year now, and it started off as we needed, like, it was like a motion capture studio in terms of like trying to help dancers bring on a to bring motion capture data onto the blockchain so that we can use those emotes and those dances within virtual worlds. And essentially we still are that, but we've kind of, from our research and development of the project, we've seen a lot of like the gaps and holes in order to get there, and realizing some of our hurdles, and realizing some of those hurdles need to be, worked on prior to us really scaling up to that scale. So we've kind of had to, we can get into that later, but yeah, so the project since then, it's been like this motion capture for the dancers over I think the summer of 2021. We saw black creators on TikTok going on strike because their dances were being taken by influencers and being monetized, and they were getting no credit. And with my experimentation of motion capture and creating virtual performances within the metaverse, I kind of saw this parallel of how we could possibly create verifiable motion data that could essentially help creators, be like, hey, look, I made this dance. And so that was kind of like the spawning idea and the energy behind this, to see that type of, to be like, oh, wow, we can do this. And furthermore, I saw it being it's a lot easier for our motion data to be interoperable between metaverses over like digital fashion and avatars. Even, avatars are even more difficult to interop between metaverses. Um, so it's been super interesting to see that. And so when we came into C Club, our idea and like our excitement was, hey, we have this idea that could possibly eliminate the audition for dancers. Like, we have an idea that could, for the first time, dancers could come up with a dance and immediately monetize it within like, minutes, 15 minutes of making that dance, instead of having to go to audition, try out, and like, hopefully be valued, and we wanted to give creators the opportunity to be valued right there and then, or by anybody, and to be able to realize that through anybody. And so that idea is like still at the forefront of Heat's mission. It's We just happen to take like different routes and different avenues of how we're going to get there currently and first. So I'm sure we can get into that later.
Yeah. I mean, I was, originally just fell in love with your project, for that reason around sort of like dancer creative autonomy and creative control and like the disintermediation of a system that I feel like, I came at all of this through the music industry, where there's, yes, a ton of middlemen. But I think something that I never really understood until I got to work with dancers a bit, was how with many dancers, there's this an additional layer of middlemen where even the sort of the layers and the like paths to finding a performance space are gate kept, and like even what you're going to be creating. And so with musicians, at least, like you can create your own music, and then you're sort of bringing your own music to those places. As a dancer, you're really like bringing yourself as a dancer, but it's often not about your own choreography or your own creativity. It's about the vision that somebody else has for you. And you just, you hope that they choose you, to then bring that vision to the stage and to the performance. So yeah, it was definitely like should have been obvious, but having worked so much in music, it didn't even occur to me that that was this like extra layer of gatekeeping within
Yeah,
dance. So yeah, Heat I think definitely called to me for that reason. I'm curious. So I think that like that speaks to kind of the point at which I got to know you and your project when you came through the accelerator. And I would love to hear sort of, what Heat is today, and what the last like 6 months or so of earnest building, because I think like that's when the building really started, was like probably, as far as like, okay, like this is the business model, like we're going to start doing it. You'd been doing a lot of like the technology prep of like, is this even possible? How might this happen? But the sort of like go to market, I think, has been, go to market, go to community has, I think, been in the last 6 months, of, launching your Discord, et cetera, et cetera. So I would love to hear what that process has been and the learnings since you brought this to the community.
absolutely. So it's been a real magical process actually, and it's been a very organic process to that. It's started off so small, and very slow at first, and it was kind of like, oof, are we even do? Are we going to get a community in here first of all? And are people going to back this project? And it was when we started really putting out our first mirror posts that I think we saw the influx of people really starting to understand our project, and what we were doing. And we saw kind of like an initial kind of wave, and those people kind of like a few of them became core and staying members that have started out and stayed and stuck around, for this kind of like process of building, which has been like a lot of it's like for the entire like the phase we're in right now is a serious build phase, and like we've been doing over the past 6 months is engaging with our community with good mornings every day, good nights, kind of engaging content, making to let them know that we're around and we're still working on this every day, and that helps keep people like ensured we are there. And then when we put out our video, our explainer video, kind of really visually showcasing what it is we're doing, is when we had just a lot of people just dive into the Discord, and a lot. I think we had 30,000 views on that video within 2 days, and it was amazing its reception, and immediately it so many people got so excited. We were answering tons and tons and tons of questions about what we were doing, but more importantly, we were having developers come in who were excited about the project. We've hired a developer that we've met through our community who now works on the project full time. We now do yoga classes bi-weekly in the morning for our community. We do community calls, and we do community calls not very often, on a monthly type of basis right now, but it's just to give progress reports. We're not a team that is gonna we're not a hype team. You know, we want to create the product and make sure that our product works, and then we'll hype the hell out of it. But you know, until then, it's like we're building, we're building, and then never have a product to show. Too many projects I've seen do that in the space, especially in crypto, and it's hard to watch. And you just watch their community have a lot of backlash and distrust in the builders, and so any future projects they get behind is very different. You know, very difficult for them to get back on their feet. Um, but anyways, that has nothing to do with our community. So yeah, building that out has been nothing but almost like easy. We get people who are posting like really good music, and they're talking about their dance projects. We've been buying their NFTs and some of our community's NFTs, who've been experimenting with dance NFTs, and who are very involved within the dance community within Web3 space, and it's been like a nice kind of like, you know, give and take of the community. But we have a couple really active members, and some who are super interested in being like community, just all around like our core community organizers and people who are being there over and watching over our community and over our Discord. Um, and we haven't decided to really pull them onto our team yet, just because, again, this is like we're in the build phase. We want to make sure that what we're doing is going to be the best possible thing. We don't want to focus on anything else right now. It's mostly just keeping our community happy that, you know, we are doing stuff and keeping them aware. And then I think the fun begins when we release our test world, which is coming up so soon. I can't wait to show them all. They're gonna freak out.
I
It's
can't
really
wait to see it.
beautiful. Yeah, so both of our developers, we've met through our branding and design group that we brought on. Our team, the Prop Supply, they worked on Uniswap and Gnosis Safe, and I met them when I was doing 3D consulting for Uniswap, and so I fell in love with their designs and work on Uniswap, that I was like, we have to work together on any project. And they introduced us to our developers, and our developers were artists before they were developers. And one of them was a sculpture artist. And now they do
They were
sculpting.
a
A sculpture.
sculptor.
Yeah, they were a sculptor. And now they do sculpting in like Blender. And they've been doing these beautiful sculptures and bringing them into their test world to kind of like really make it like an ethereal, beautiful experience, and something that's like way more than just like a white grid, and you know, you
Yeah.
walk around in that. We're trying to really like set the tone of what is a good virtual and immersive metaverse project, not just a quick and easy cash grab of, you know, Fiverr developers, which we see
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
in this space. But yeah.
First of all, I can't wait to see this new world. So I'm very excited. I hope I get a sneak peek.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and second of all, I think that, you know, the like slow build, you know, and like, you know, being really earnest about like staying true to your mission, I think is so critical. I guess I'm curious, like, how you have balanced the building, the community, and, you know, you talked about hype, but there are like these drips, right, of like, you know, buzz and excitement. I have to say that like the Heat visuals are just so, I mean, it's, you know, an obvious pun, but they're so fire. Like they're just like every time you see them, it like gives you goosebumps. If you haven't seen them, you should definitely go and check them out. They like play with that sort of uncanny valley space of, you know, avatars and something being, hyper real. So the visuals that you put out, I think like generate a ton of hype. But then, how do you balance like the authentic community building, the technical building, which takes just a lot of like heads down time, and then knowing when to kind of have that like drip of, alpha, or like this is what's coming. How have you balanced that?
Absolutely. It's definitely been a learning lesson, and from the beginning, like the past 6 months, it's something that we've definitely had to progressively get better at. And we kind of like what we found to do, honestly, is like just having a routine schedule, routine like weekly schedule in which we like these 2 hours for Tuesday, we're meeting with our devs and we're working on that. Tuesday and Thursday, we definitely do that. And then if we're in any kind of other task that we have to do, it's really just about organization and like proper scheduling and making sure you give time to all of those things. And that's kind of where we're finding the balance to be able to do that. Though for the drips, it kind of like that one's a little tougher to explain because it's kind of like all A, are we ready? B, what is our, I'm gonna say it, vibe of like does the community feel slow right now? Does is are we feeling like there's not enough attention or engagement with our posts or anything at the moment? Do we need to put that out? And kind of we gauge on when to put drip out like that. But in terms of where, I guess right now it's more scheduled, and we have everything on a timeline now that we've had enough time to build out that timeline. And so we are like, okay, Test World's coming out next month. Then we're going to go do our marketplace, and then we're going to all throughout the building process every week we're going to drop a picture or some kind of information about what we're doing, and sneak peeks, even if they're like cropped, like abstracts of what it is. But yeah, that's kind of been that is, yeah, it's just really about just organizing and really creating that schedule and adhering to that schedule and just making it a weekly thing, like a routine. And if you give something time every week, an hour, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, you will be able to work on that thing it will get done if you
Yeah.
make time for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that like the discipline is so key. You spoke a little bit about the yoga sessions, which like I feel like I need to take advantage of those.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. I've
So
only
yeah,
been to one.
um, let's talk a little bit about like, I don't know, I hesitate to use the word like self care, but like balance and health, especially like, creative health, um, community health, and sort of like sustainability, because, you're an artist. And so having space for that creative play and creativity, creation in general is obviously something that you've had to create over the years, carve away space for so that you can like make art. At the same time, Web3 is such an all-consuming space, and it's a place where like there's just this vacuum where you can basically be online all days, all hours.
All the time.
And then on yeah, and then on top of that, there's the pace and sort of the keeping up with the Joneses, of DAOs in some ways, of like seeing, like other DAOs make what looks like tremendous progress without perhaps understanding, what's under the surface or what those challenges might be, in their communities. And so I'm curious how, you specifically as a creative leader, but then your team in general has struck a balance there of like making time for work, making time to, you know, have a pace that's like sustainable for your community, in a world that, like, let's name it, can feel, while there's definitely a lot of like wag me, there's also a lot of, competition, and seeing like, wow, everybody else is going so fast, gosh, like we're not growing at the pace that I'd like for us to grow. So how do you balance all those tensions?
So again, that's also another like I think a huge learning lesson for me over the year because as uh, I've never really dove into the financial aspects of markets or exchanges or having the abundance that crypto can give you. So I've had to personally learn a lot of like how to balance focusing on like all this financial stuff and learning all of it and then trying to maintain being creative. And it hasn't been the easiest thing, I'm not gonna lie. It's like the pace at which crypto moves, in which you spoke to, is absolute insanity. And to be at the pace is and to be always on the cusp is literally having to be online 24/7 to be able to follow with everybody that's doing it. I really am glad to have like really amazing co-founders. I think I really feel like they're where I fall on them to help keep me in pace because yeah, I'm having to focus on also what are the new technologies that are coming out with the art, like the tools that I use to create my art. And for like 3D space, which is also kind of like in parallel with what we're building at Heat. So I'm having to like research motion capture, having to research like the latest in 3D, the latest in mobile phones, because we're trying to figure out how to like use your phone to capture that data, etc. And so having to, and I feel like this is also something that Nicole, that over the past like 6 months, I've even reached out to you about. It's been like, look, I'm trying to like also be a creative, but I need a team to like help me like be able to do all this other stuff. That's been and so what I've been finding is that again, it's having the discipline to move off the computer, to move off Twitter, to move off Discord, and go and focus on whatever it is I'm building. And like for the explainer video that I made, it took me about 2 weeks to make that entirely. And I just everybody's like, "Are you okay? What are you doing? You haven't been answering your emails, etc." It's because it's I have to when I dive in, and it's very difficult. So the way that we foresee like us trying to mitigate a lot of the those tasks is to having a scale, and we are going to have to hire and to get we're definitely going to have a research team and research arm for our for Heat that is constantly like watching, talking, getting into those discords with those communities, other communities that are building, or other projects that are building, and watching them, and keeping at the pace because we're trying to collaborate with digital fashion designers and trying to like experiment with ways in which fashion can help accentuate movement, and how do my clothes and what does that look like? And can clothes make movement even more powerful and ethereal and beautiful? And what can that say? And so we're having to do that, but also focusing in the community while also focusing on building, while also focusing on trying to raise. So it's many, 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 many hats. And then I also have like 2 music projects, which I also
Right.
are
Yeah.
full time jobs. So that's wild. It's like going to talking about crypto at 9 to 10 a.m. and then going to do an interview at 11 talking about a completely different industry and then coming back to crypto at 12, and then motion capture at 1 and then social media at 2. And that's kind of like that's been my schedule. It's very interesting. I don't know if I have a an answer other than then, yeah, scaling, building a team, get people involved, try to manage your time as best as you can. It's so fast paced out there. Find aggregators, if you can, something that can just give you snippets of information so you can try to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, today I get an advisor showing me a picture of something that looked like a Heat UI, and I was like, "Oh wow, it looks like a competition." And so, I know, like you said, it's WAGMI, but there is competition out there. So how are we dealing with that? And I think that was one of the tensions that you spoke to is, I don't know. We, I guess with our ethos, it's like we'll believe it when we see it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we understand that in our experience of having been building in this space, that a lot of this space does a lot of really good marketing. And there's a lot of it's happening, it's coming, it's right around the corner, and we're building this, and you're gonna get that, and you're gonna get this, and then months go by, and we're like, well, where is it? What is happening? Well, there's actually a problem, and we didn't foresee this, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I guess I'll get more specific to what I'm speaking to, and that's kind of like avatar interoperability through like CloneX or the Adidas and those Nike projects. Well, it's extremely difficult to try to get these avatars into all these different virtual worlds because you're having to deal with so many different elements between how are the pixels rendered? Are they voxels? Are they pixels? How many shaders of materials and are allowed? Do my wearables work? Are the animations going to work? Are the controls going to be functioning with the animations and how your avatars were rigged? There's so many, so many, so many hurdles that I feel like if a game there should be more game studios in crypto space because I feel like they would be able to literally unveil. I feel a lot of where we actually are at in terms of metaverse because we are so early, very early to the point where we at Heat are currently in talks of like deciding to write this insane paper of calling for a standard, of the way that avatars are going to be built from here on out. Because we it not necessarily that we need he doesn't need this, but it would make things so much easier in the future for everybody to be building in parallel with each other. So like at Heat, we feel like we're building the self-expression layer of the metaverse, the Heat like the emote layer for motion data, so that metaverses can more focus on their aesthetics, their economy, their tooling, and etc. And we can focus on emotion and that type of self-expression and bringing that. So that takes so much weight off their shoulders, especially in if we can just plug in like a Lego block, like, boom, we're in. Heat's in your metaverse, and there it is, and then you have access to all of our motion data. That is like we feel it's like going to be a huge proposition for why people would want to be and take part in your metaverse if they can use Heat in your metaverse, which is kind of like an interesting thing. Before we thought we were kind of having to maybe like really pitch ourselves to the metaverse, but we feel that metaverses will really want to be like integrating with us and getting access to all of our information because why would you want to build that all from scratch yourself when you could have access to what we're building?
Yeah. Well, I think like the authenticity at the core is perhaps also maybe what you're getting at. I mean, I think that like it is this, tension in philosophy and vibe that we're all looking at of like, yes, the WAGMI, but then also wanting to be, first to the market or, et cetera, et cetera. But I think knowing that, like, I think that what you said is such a good reminder that being able to stay authentic to knowing that what you build works and that you have a community behind you, like when you focus on those things, I think it hopefully ideally sort of makes the other worries slip away, even when you see something. And I think it's also, I mean, I think that, it's also validation sometimes, right? When you see similar models out there, you're like, okay, so there is something there, clearly, or else there wouldn't be other people also trying this concept out. And so it's just a question of, staying authentic and staying focused on the pieces that you do best. All right. So you've mentioned that you've brought on partners, finding other communities and, other projects that work well with heat. And so I think that in this sort of like infinite, abundant Web3 world, how have you gone about making those selections of, yeah, this is going to be a good project for us to partner with? Because there's just like, there's so much creativity right now, there's so much to choose from.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of what we're looking for, and first and foremost, is usually crypto native projects, and then projects that we feel are working in parallel for a similar problem, that have the ethos of creators first, and then also are able to possibly introduce us to more partners and other, be it investors, be it more developers, be it other artists, be it dancers. We look for people who are able to kind of like help us out in that direction as well, and bring new people to the table and to the project. So those are important things for us when searching for partners. People who understand what we're doing, who are excited about what we're doing, uh, who can introduce us to other people who may also be excited about what we're doing. And that's kind of like our criteria for that. And that literally comes down to me and Stav and Prof kind of sitting down and talking about that and like saying like, yeah, we feel like, first we look, is this person have the qualifications for what we're looking for? And B, do we vibe with them? Are they cool? Do we smile when we talk with them? Yes, if that is it, then yes. If you're not smiling with a person, maybe they might not be your hire. They might not be the way you go. But that's also, a smile doesn't have to determine whether you hire somebody or not. By the way, uh, everybody smiles.
No, it's a good point. But I think, one of the best pieces of like career advice that I ever heard was from this bassist, Steve Bailey, who's played with like, I don't know, everybody. He was chair of the bass department at Berkeley. And he's like, ultimately, like, you just want to be a good hang. If you can be a good hang, then you're going to get pretty far. And, like, he was speaking specifically about, like, perhaps being a session musician or being a, sort of a working musician and why working musicians get hired. But, yeah, I think
Yeah.
being a good hang
Oh,
is.
absolutely. Gotta be a good hang. Especially in the music world. I mean, if you're on tour and then you're in the van for 8 hours a day together, you gotta be a good hang. You
But I
gotta be
think
a
it's true. I think it's true in Web3 too. Like I think that knowing how to be
Oh yeah.
a good hang is a sort of critical part of like making yourself useful and desirable in a Web3 team. So yeah, shout out
Absolutely. I
Steve
think I
Bailey.
think yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why a lot of people come to work with us is like me, Prof and Steffi always are joking and laughing no matter our call, no matter how serious the call may be. We find a way to smile, laugh, and have a good time. And they're just there at all times today. Like, yeah, I gotta say that I'm very lucky to have a really really cool team around this project that's able to be there and like pick up where I fall short, which we all do for each other. Like if somebody's got to go out of town for something, maybe it was East Denver, and Prof's out there, talking with everybody, telling
Yeah.
everybody about us, but me and Stav are back. Stav's handling the community. I'm maybe building out, or actually, I was rendering out our collaboration with the digital fashion designers, which these came out so magical. They're very beautiful pieces, and it's just I feel like some of the beginnings of where I think okay with doing these types of projects, we're able to also give our community ideas of how they can collaborate and use dance within Web3. And because most dancers come in, they're just like, okay, so I'm just gonna make a video of me dancing, and that's how I'm gonna make an NFT. And I mean, dancing is a full experience. When you're watching somebody dance, you want to see all sides. You can walk around it. I feel it's a very immersive visual, like 3D experience. But yeah, it's so they come in and we try to like ruffle up the ideas and give them some new material to go through and some new contextualization of how to use dance and etc. And I think that's also a powerful thing about Heat and its Discord and its community right now.
Well, I'm super stoked to see where this goes. I'm imagining some sort of like Met fashion gala, but in the metaverse with like incredible designs and movement. I don't know when that's going to happen,
Oh yeah,
but I think it's got
it's
to be in the roadmap.
oh yeah, that's like honestly I think it's like we'll have that out within 2-3 weeks, I believe. The fashion, yeah, like the digital fashion show. It's inspired. Have you ever seen the movie Holy Mountain?
No.
Okay, so it's kind of like a cult classic weird film, but it's really cool. Anyways, some of the visuals were initially so it are inspired from that film, and that was kind of like what we went based a lot of like the designs off of from the rooms in which the clothes are displayed in, and then the designs of the clothes themselves. But yeah, it's
Looking
all going to
forward
be
to
super
it.
cool. Yeah,
Cannot
I'm very much
wait.
looking forward to it.
Where
Yeah,
can
that's happening
we?
with. I was
Oh,
gonna say
I
that's
was.
happening with digital acts. Do you know? I think I feel like C Club work has like collaborated with Digital Acts at some point, but it's Digital Acts and the Global Design Network and Emma Jane, and she's the runner of all that. And if you're not familiar with Emma Jane, she is absolutely amazing. She's has more documentation out about metaverse and digital
Hmm.
fashion than anybody I've ever seen. That's open to the public to read about where their project is at, the challenges they're facing, and what needs to be done in order for this to actually happen. She's just a big brainiac on that. I would say she's like the water and music of digital fashion.
Ooh, I love that. I love that
Yeah,
analogy. All right, so
yeah.
where can we find and follow you and Heat and stay up to date so that when these exciting updates come out, we can see them?
Absolutely. So the first and foremost place is jump into our Discord, follow our Twitter, he underscore, and jump in there because we give our community the first and foremost. They get the news first, then we post it on Twitter. We love to like give them the drips before everybody else gets it. And then if you are even furthermore inclined, we still have the data, our initial NFT fundraise is still available, and you can get that on our mirror. And that gives you access to our behind the scenes Discord where you're getting all of our like images from the test world and what we're building and how things are going, and you'll get to know when and where you can get into our test world to start testing out your dances. So that's how to get involved. It depends on your level of involvement and where you feel comfortable getting involved in the project. But come as deep, go as deep as you want.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing your learning and your journey. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole, for having me. Always a pleasure speaking with you. Always an honor to be involved with any Seat Club activity or anything around that. So beautiful. Thanks for having me.